But Brandon, let's move on into the second semifinal game. And I screwed up during the first segment. I had to re-look over my notes. 2-3 was Oklahoma, Georgia. We are now looking at the 1-4 matchup, which is the Alabama-Crimson Tide at number 4, the Clemson Tigres at number 1.
And Ricky, I gotta get up and say for this one, Clemson fans, guys, I'm sorry. Your team made it. Your team made it.
What's funny is I don't know if they could hear you.
That's fine. I'm yelling. I'm literally yelling. So, Clemson fans, nice job. You dogged Ricky and I throughout the season.
Oh, they're not done.
Basically, it's because we dogged your team,
yeah,
but
they're not done.
But
they're not done
I did have to get up and say, you guys made it. We owe you that. I certainly do. Nice job.
You know what? You know who's very confused right now? Our Blog Talk Radio listeners. They're probably like, what the hell is going on? I could hear Brandon. I couldn't hear Brandon. Now I can hear Brandon again. For our Blog Talk Radio listeners, Brandon got up and he bowed or did something to the camera.
To our Clemson
fans. But like I said, they're not done dogging us because we still got to talk about this game. The one thing I want to start with this one, and this is my own personal belief, in my heart of hearts, I believe that this is going to be better than the national championship game, no matter who we get. This game, we will look back and go, man, that national championship was all right. But, man, what if that Clemson-Alabama game was a national championship, man? That was a game. That was probably the best game of this playoff. I could see us saying that at the end of everything.
For some reason, and I could be completely wrong, I feel like this game, this Alabama versus Clemson Part 3, is not going to live up to what we believe it should be. Just because I feel like we've had this now, obviously
many movies, it's outdone its run and it should have stopped after 2, maybe even 1.
No, it definitely needed to go to 2.
Okay.
It needed to go to 2. This is one of those movies where you needed a sequel. You needed a
tiebreaker.
But here's the whole thing: is that's the point. Is that we look at this as being we need this because this is going to show us who the best team out of these two is. Mm-hmm. Guys, this is completely different. We're looking at Jalen Hurts, who has been able to be there now for 1 year. He was there obviously last year, Coker the year before. Mm-hmm. We have no more Watson, no more Williams, no more Gallman. A lot of these guys, defensively they're gone. We're not seeing the same.
So you're making excuses for Clemson, I see. They're losing all these players. How could it be the same game?
But what I'm trying to say is I'm not trying to make excuses on either side. I'm saying I don't think that we're going to be seeing the same game that we really hope and dream of seeing that we've seen the last 2 years. That is just a gut feeling inside of me because we are hyping it up so much. It's like going to the movies and you're like, this is going to be the best one, huge. And it's going to be amazing. And then you get out and you're like, son of a gun. Just wasted $12.50 or $13 in some places. And I want my money back. I hope it's not, but I just have that gut feeling that it's going to be. However, it is going to be interesting because it is Part 3 of Clemson, Alabama, and the last 2 have lived up to be exactly in everything that we've wanted.
The most important thing, you know how in the last one I said, I'm looking forward to Georgia's defense against Baker Mayfield and that offense?
Yeah.
In this one, I cannot wait to see Alabama's offense hit the field and Clemson's defense hit the field. Because if I'm looking back at the last 3 games, and for Alabama and for everyone out there, I'm just going to totally disclude the exhibition game that they played on the 18th against Mercer. I believe they played an exhibition game that week, right? That was not a real game.
That was the JV. That was the JV week.
So just for this segment, when I say last 3 for Alabama, I'm talking about Auburn, Mississippi State, and LSU, not that exhibition that they played against a weak opponent. That was one thing. This is Ricky on his soapbox again. I was talking to someone at work today, and he was like, man, Alabama. I'm like, dude, they don't go and play anybody. Last year, they play the Trojans. We'll play in Texas. This year, we'll play Florida State, but we'll play in a neutral site close enough to Alabama. They don't go anywhere. They don't play anybody. So Ricky's off his soapbox, just letting you know I'm not counting the exhibition game on the 18th. However, if you look at their last 3, they only score 14 to Auburn. They do score 31 against Mississippi State, but it's a close game, and they only score 24 against LSU. Vastly lower than most of their games up to that point, except for the Texas A&M game. You look at Clemson in their last 3, Miami only scored 3. South Carolina only scored 10. I'll do them the same justice that I did the Alabama, is that I'll exclude the exhibition you played against the Citadel on the 18th, although the Citadel got a field goal, and then they gave up 14 to Florida State. So the defense, one game where it's like, okay, that's the most, but then it's like 10-3. And I know South Carolina, not the big opponent like Alabama or even a Miami, but last game, man, Miami, I thought they would score more than just 3 points, and this Clemson defense shut them down. And I mean, Rozier was kind of inaccurate, but that was a good effort by Clemson's defense to just shut down the Miami Hurricane, and that is why I'm excited for them. That side of the ball against Alabama's offense when these two meet the field on the 31st.
Well, Ricky, let me just put it to you plain and simple right here. If Clemson's defense is able to stop Alabama's running game and keep Jalen Hurts in the pocket, Clemson wins. That is so simple. That is the simple way to put it. It's much more complex than that, but that's what you have to do. I mean, that's what teams who have been able to beat Alabama have been able to do. But now let me tell you something though, is that where do you see Kelly Bryant in terms of, where do you look at him and place him in terms of a good quarterback, quote unquote? I did quotes there for Blog Talk Radio listeners.
Yeah.
Quotes, good quarterback.
And that's the thing where if there's any, like all the names that you named at the beginning, most of them Clemson players that aren't going to be in this matchup that were in the last 2 that these 2 teams played. If there's any one name I'm looking at as a Clemson fan, like, all right, it's going to be different. Like, Clemson fans are going to come in and have confidence. I'm not saying you're not. However, Kelly Bryant's got some big shoes to fill in this game, because Deshaun Watson was the reason Clemson won last year.
No doubt.
If they don't have Deshaun Watson, they don't win that game. And I know there were some big catches. You had Renfro doing some great things. You had a big catch by Mike Williams late in the game. But if you don't have Deshaun Watson, you do not win that game. Kind of like the year before. I think it was the year before. If Alabama doesn't have O.J. Howard, they don't win that game. Like, that's what it came down to, a special player winning that game. And that's the interesting part on the flip side of the ball that I'm interested to see, is I feel like Alabama's defense is going to, what I would do, take away everything short. Basically, anything within 20 yards, we're going to be all over you. We're going to force you to throw the ball down the field. Beat us deep. I'm daring you to beat us deep. That's kind of what I'm going to do. I'm going to force Clemson to throw it deep, try to shut down everything up front, and just be all over the ball on short passes. And that's the question mark that I have with Kelly Bryant, is can he successfully continue to go deep down the field and beat Alabama doing it?
So another thing that I want to be able to mention is that, again, on the defensive side for Clemson, let's not forget the people who are up front defensively. Clellan Ferrell, Dexter Lawrence, Christian Wilkins, all ACCers. I mean, this is phenomenal. I mean, when you're
talking about Clemson's defense,
that's what I just said. That is
just making sure.
That is just crazy. Those guys that are up front for that defense who are going to be trying to stop the rushing attack for Alabama.
Yeah.
The rushing game for Alabama versus that defensive front for Clemson is going to be the most exciting thing to watch that entire night. Who's going to win the battle in the trenches there? And it's going to be very, very hard fought throughout the entire game. Alabama's health of their defensive players mainly. They were not healthy for that Iron Bowl. They were certainly nowhere near healthy for that Iron Bowl.
They've had time to rest up.
They've had time to rest up. They're going to be without Hootie Jones, starting safety, so he's out with an MCL injury. But for the most part,
he's going to play with the Blowfish, right? Hootie?
and they're overall going to have more time to rest. That was funny.
Sometimes I have some good ones.
Most times you do. Not everyone enjoys it or appreciates it, but you do.
Thank you, Brandon.
You're welcome, Ricky. That's what friends do. We always say that our other friends' jokes are funny. I need to tell my other friends that. But I think that's going to be a very, very key thing for Alabama. And then it comes to when you look at the quarterback battle in this game, you've got Kelly Bryant, who's new to this position, but as I said, in the case of Jake Fromm for Georgia, doesn't mean that they're any less prepared or ready because they've had big games throughout the season. But this is now the second year that Jalen Hurts is going to be in this spot. This is going to be the second time that he's played Clemson. Obviously not in the national championship game this year, but it's still a big spot. You win, you're in the national championship. It could be the slight edge to Hurts because he's been here, he's done it, and he's hoping to do it again. But this is going to be, again, on paper, looks to be a great, great game. I hope that it is. Again, my gut feeling is that we're not going to be, if there was a game that we're going to look at the two games, Georgia, Oklahoma, and Alabama, Clemson, I'm going to say that Georgia, Oklahoma is going to be the better game, just for a gut feeling that we're looking for this to be part 3, Alabama, who...
So you're saying we're going to overhype it?
We already have overhyped it. We're calling it a part 3. Of course, it's already overhyped. And not that it's not part 3 because it is, but it's going to be Alabama and the Crimson Tide, the team who's there all the time, the team who a lot of people thought shouldn't be there, and Ohio State should have. They shouldn't have, by the way. But and then on the other side for Clemson, this team who has just kind of stuck around all season long, not doing anything spectacular. And Clemson fans, you may be able to get behind me on that. They haven't done anything like, whoa! But they've done some really good things and just maintained their level of production all throughout the year. And now we're going to be like, okay, here we go. This is it. And then we just don't get it. So that's why I think that we're going to see the better game on the other side. Again, gut feeling on this one, but I hope we still see a good game.
You know what offensively for Clemson needs to show up for them to win, to help out Kelly Bryant? Even if Kelly Bryant wants to do it, that'll work too. I'm going to read you some totals from the last 3 games for Alabama. Iron Bowl, you had Johnson, 30 carries, 104 yards and a touchdown. Jarrett Stidham, 12 carries, 51 yards and a touchdown. Able to move the ball on the ground. Then Mississippi State. I know Mississippi State didn't win, but 97 yards for Williams, 2 tutties. Nick Fitzgerald, 66 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Then you had LSU. You had Williams with 83 and a touchdown. You had Geis with 71. You even had Gage with 26. I don't give a crap which Tiger running back wants to do it. Could be all of them, could be 2 of them, could be 1 of them. Has to be somebody. Somebody needs to pick up the torch and say, I am going to put in the work this game. Because that is how you are going to beat how you're going to beat Alabama, is run the ball, force the defense, first wear them out because you're running the ball nonstop. Then you get them to creep up. That'll open things over the top, and then you can't. Remember I said take away 20 yards? Well, if you keep running the ball, they have to come up and respect the run. That'll open up 12 to 13 to 15-yard passes, and you can kind of throw within that 10 to 20-yard range. That's why I'm looking at the running backs from Clemson. I go, if that offense wants to be successful, they got to get something going. The magical situation would be 2 running backs doing it or 1 running back and Kelly Bryant. But I don't see that. I see 2 running backs have to have it going and getting some scores on the ground.
And that's why one of the reasons why I think that Alabama lost that game to Auburn when they did was because, I think I sat here and said, Ricky, what's one of the things that Alabama has struggled with is when they go up against a good quarterback, they're unable to really hold him.
Nick Fitzgerald had a chance to beat him too. He just overthrew it.
No, but see, that's the whole thing. Nick Fitzgerald, who I would consider to be a good quarterback, he's a mobile quarterback. He's a guy who can run. Obviously, he did. They had the chance. They made that game close throughout, then he lost.
That one was just funny. He throws the perfect ball. Penalty, they move 10 yards closer. He overthrows it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I
forgot they moved 10 yards closer. That's what it was.
I think that's going to be another thing that comes into play. It's, how well will Kelly Bryant perform, and will his offensive line be able to hold up against Alabama's defensive front? Will they give him time? Will he be able to run the football effectively? But I think the same can be said on the other side for Jalen Hurts. Again, like I said, it's simple to say, difficult to be able to then go through and really dissect it, is that if Jalen Hurts is unable to get out of the pocket and run, because Jalen Hurts, running quarterback, I mean, he can throw the football too, and he's effective at it. I think he's gotten better this season, but he's still a running quarterback. If he's unable to do what he enjoys doing, and that's being able to get out of the pocket and be mobile, he is going to struggle. He will end up having to make throws that he necessarily doesn't want to have to make or feel comfortable making. And if those running backs for Alabama are unable to get anything going effectively on the ground, which we saw it against, I don't know if you remember the game against Texas A&M, but they struggled. They struggled mightily on the ground to get anything going. And I think they also struggled against LSU to get anything going on the ground. LSU was struggling to do anything offensively, but Alabama, if they struggle on the ground, they stink. They are not very good, and Clemson will have to take advantage of that if they can do it.
I'll ask you before we move on, any final thoughts about this game between the Tigres and the Roll Tide?
I do really hope that we end up getting a good game here. I think that we have two really good teams, two teams who I think have obviously grown accustomed to playing each other. So that's why it's going to be really interesting.
It's going to be a rivalry.
It is, and it's going to be interesting to come down how the coaching is. You've got two really good coaches, two coaches I respect very much on both sides. Nick Saban and Dabo Swinney, I think two of the best in the coaching game in college football. Guys who have completely great football minds and guys who are ready for this one. And that's why it's going to be really interesting, because there's new players, but there's no new schemes. It's back to the same that we've been doing for the last couple of years, same type of thing. Alabama's going to try and run the ball with a three-headed monster, and then Clemson is going to try and get you with some plays, for them probably out of the pocket with Kelly Bryant, be able to do some of those things, and then obviously open up some holes to run the football. Clemson's the one that is a little interesting to me, because when they had Deshaun Watson, they were good with the pass. With Kelly Bryant, I'm not sure what to expect, because he's kind of had an up and down season. Some games he's been a pretty good passer. Other games he hasn't really been all that effective with the pass, but the running games come to play. So it'll be interesting to see how he performs against a pretty good and for the most part healthy Alabama defense.
Well, what's funny is I'm looking at, right now we're recording this, like I said, on the 18th, because Brandon and I will not be here in the studio for Christmas. I mentioned O.J. Howard early. He's got a touchdown in the Monday night game right now for Tampa Bay.
He does. O.J. Howard's actually done fairly well in the NFL with Tampa Bay this year.
But this is where I want to turn it on to you guys. Let us know what you guys think down below about this matchup. Who you got winning? What do you expect? Do you think we're overhyping it? I'm going to throw that out because that's what Brandon was kind of going at, is that maybe it doesn't live up to the hype. What do you guys think will happen? If you're looking for our picks, check out our picks video. That is going to have our prediction and how we think this game will turn out. But let us know what you guys think down below in the comment section.